The gym that night had settled into an uneasy quiet, a calm before the storm, though no one fully understood why. Fluorescent lights flickered faintly, casting pale rectangles across the worn mats, each one a silent witness to decades of effort, sweat, and unspoken struggle. Sarah Chun, notebook in hand, sat perched on the edge of a bench, her muscles taut with anticipation. For 2 years, she had studied martial arts under Derek Mitchell, absorbing not just technique but hierarchy, the invisible rules of respect and submission that ran like veins through the academy. She knew when the energy in the room shifted, and tonight it had changed entirely. Derek Mitchell, Sensei Derek, the fearsome authority figure who demanded obedience through intimidation, strode across the gym floor. His black belt glinted under the lights, a symbol of years spent training in gyms, fighting in tournaments, and asserting dominance. He thrived on the subtle fear his presence inspired, the way students flinched when corrected, the way they whispered his name with a mix of reverence and caution. To him, martial arts were discipline forged through fear, respect earned through submission, and strength demonstrated through superiority. And then there was James Washington, the janitor, who moved quietly in the background, broom in hand. His presence was almost invisible, yet to Sarah, it was unnervingly precise. Every motion was a statement in economy and grace. A sweep of the broom was not mere cleaning, but a rehearsal of balance, timing, and controlled energy. Something in the rhythm of his body felt like a signal, a resonance with the elite footage she had memorized, the movements of fighters who had left legends behind. Her curiosity had always been academic, a careful observation of form and function. Tonight, though, it took on the edge of anticipation, tinged with fear. Derek's eyes, sharp and calculating, fell on James. The air seemed to thicken around him. "You there?" Derek snapped, his voice slicing through the gym's silence. "Stop standing there like a shadow. Move. Do something useful." James paused, resting the broom lightly against the floor. He looked up, calm, unwavering. His gaze alone commanded attention, carrying an invisible weight that seemed to still the air itself. "Last chance to apologize," James said softly, his voice calm yet firm, reverberating through the space like a quiet alarm. "To her, to your students, to yourself. Turn this place back into what it should be, a place of learning." Derek laughed, a hollow, sharp sound. "Apologize? You'll be begging for forgiveness when you're on the floor." The tension tightened. Students instinctively moved back, the charged air vibrating with the inevitability of confrontation. Sarah felt a cold shiver, the unmistakable signal she had felt watching elite fighters. Something extraordinary was about to unfold. Derek assumed his fighting stance, his posture precise, practiced, confident. He moved like someone who had spent decades mastering gym techniques and tournament drills, the type of fighter who expected opponents to follow the predictable rhythm of aggression. James simply observed, cataloging Derek's movements with an almost supernatural patience. Then James moved, not aggressively, not with flourish, but with perfect economy. His center of gravity shifted, feet adjusting imperceptibly, shoulders relaxing, breathing measured, timing calibrated to absolute precision. Derek struck, a jab, honed over thousands of repetitions. Air, another sequence, jab, hook, straight, air again. Sarah's eyes widened. She scribbled furiously, recording what she was seeing. The impossible control, the timing, the subtle anticipation of movement. James was not reacting. He was predicting, Every strike Derek launched was already accounted for in a matrix of muscle memory, past experiences, and precise calculation of force and trajectory. Derek's face tightened. Panic, unfamiliar and unwelcome, seeped into his expression. His strikes became erratic, desperate, punches and kicks flailing in a chaotic rhythm. And yet, James remained a step ahead, moving with the fluidity of water, effortlessly redirecting momentum, nullifying aggression without effort. Then, impossibly, James closed the distance. One soft touch to Derek's chest sent him flying. 2 meters. No swing, no shout, no force visible, just the undeniable result of perfect leverage, timing, and energy transfer. Derek landed hard, back hitting the mat with a sound that made every head in the room turn, breath caught in collective shock. The silence that followed was absolute. Derek's eyes widened, confusion and disbelief etched into every line of his face. "Impossible," he whispered. James extended a hand, calm, almost gentle. "Leverage, timing, energy transfer. Principles I learned over a 22-year professional career. Professional rings teach lessons gyms cannot." Sarah's phone buzzed. She discreetly checked, the name flashing on the screen sending a shiver through her. James Washington, Silent Storm, 5-time world MMA champion, undefeated, retired after a tragic accident. Memories of the legends she had studied came alive. A flood of footage, articles, and photographs confirming the reality before her eyes. Derek's arrogance evaporated instantly. I didn't know," he stammered. "If I had known," James interrupted gently, "would you have humiliated another janitor?" The lesson cut deeper than any strike, exposing the arrogance that had governed Derek's life. Students watched, transfixed. Humiliation and respect were no longer abstract. They were palpable, living, unfolding in the space between two men. James's career, in Sarah's mind, flashed vividly in recollection. She imagined the young fighter stepping into the octagon for the first time, muscles taut, heart racing, eyes scanning the crowd and his opponent. Every fight had been a meticulous dance, a negotiation of space, timing, and mental dominance. He remembered his first professional bout, facing a man 5 years older and twice as heavy. The crowd roared, cameras flashed, the tension a living thing. James relied on the fundamentals: breathing, positioning, leverage. He did not overpower, he outthought, outtimed, outlasted. Each jab, each kick, each clinch was calculated with a precision born of years of disciplined practice. Victory came not through brute force, but through methodical, relentless application of principle. In another fight, a brutal championship match, he faced a striker whose speed was legendary. The first round was chaos, flurries of punches and kicks. James absorbed, dodged, and redirected energy, turning aggression into opportunity. By the third round, his opponent was exhausted, momentum shifted, and James executed a precise counterstrike that ended the bout decisively. Every spectator, every analyst, every opponent thereafter remembered that fight not for the force of the blow, but for the masterful control and timing displayed by the fighter now known as Silent Storm. Back in the present, Derek struggled to stand, legs shaking. I didn't know who you were," he muttered, voice barely above a whisper. James's gaze held him, patient, unyielding. "Then why humiliate those who cannot defend themselves?" Sarah stepped forward. "Sensei Derek, for 2 years I trained here out of respect for your experience. But what I witnessed today was not teaching. It was bullying disguised as instruction." The students murmured in agreement. Derek's empire of intimidation began to crumble before their eyes. James smiled faintly, the first genuine warmth of the evening. True strength is not earned with belts or titles, but with character. Respect is given to those who deserve it, not those who fear it. Over the following months, the gym transformed. James Washington, once invisible, now led classes on martial arts philosophy, humility, and respect. Derek lost half of his students in the first week. The rest returned, cautious, humbled, eager to learn from experience rather than dominate through intimidation. Sarah chronicled everything, aware that history was unfolding, that her research had become real, tangible, and transformative. James taught without pride, without display. He emphasized that the greatest victories were those of restraint, wisdom, and integrity. Students learned that humility can be mightier than strength, that character outweighs reputation, and that judging another without knowledge is a path to personal ruin. 3 months later, the gym thrummed with new energy, respect, curiosity, and unspoken acknowledgement that something extraordinary had passed through their lives. Derek continued to teach, now tempered by the lesson of public humiliation, reshaped by the weight of knowledge and self-reflection. Sarah understood fully now that greatness often hides behind ordinary faces, that stories carried silently can astonish, transform, and redeem. James Washington, janitor and legend, smiled quietly. True strength, he had proven, was never in belts, titles, or victories. It was in restraint, wisdom, and the quiet authority that comes from knowing oneself. Sometimes the greatest storms pass without sound, leaving only change, growth, and the enduring power of character.